Hey, what's up guys? So welcome to today's video. Today we'll be looking at how we can convert a simple loading screen and make it into something interactive. So if I were to launch the main menu here, as you will see, once I click on play, the second screen will load perfectly fine. However, you may notice that there is a loading function that is being run. Obviously, this will depend on your project. For instance, you might be spawning NPCs dynamically during gameplay, so having to load all of them before the game starts is definitely something you'd do. And if you just put the player here, then they might just see random NPCs just popping around, so you don't want that. So one common way of fixing this issue was to have a loading screen, but the problem with this is that sometimes it can distract yourself from the immersion of the game, and it might also be boring. So one alternative way is to add a small mini game to the loading screen. The goal of this is to have a very simple yet fun experience. So for instance, here you just collect small balls that randomly spawns, and for each ball you collect, you get 1 point. This is very easy to make and doesn't use a whole lot of resources, but it still is a very fun one. And then if you collect the wrong ball, it just resets your score. So we'll be using this as the interactive element. Obviously you could design something way more interesting or different, or perhaps even something that complements your gameplay. This is all up to you. So let's get started. So here is the scene loading sim. This is essentially the simulation that I run to simulate the loading of the scene. Obviously this will depend on your project. You might have different scripts, all that are instantiating new objects or initializing themselves, but the core logic remains the same. So basically for each script you want to have a flag that is called has loaded, and then on awake you just set it to false, and then when all this initialization work has been done, you just set it to true. So that's the basic core principle that our system uses. And then here we also extended it so that we get a visual. So we just call wait until load.onload progress. So this just sends a normalized value between 0 and 1 to indicate the script progress or the loading progress. Again, you could completely remove it. You could put your own custom solution here, but this is a very simple one that I have. Moving on to the next thing, which is the load scene object. So this one has a singleton pattern. We have the instance, we have a reference to the loading screen index, as well as a async operation game scene up. Actually, we aren't using this, just ignore it, sorry. So on void awake, what we are doing is we are checking whether or not instance is not equal to default or null, and if it is not null, we are checking whether or not instance is actually this object. If it is not this object, then we can just destroy this instance. The reason we are doing this is because of line 20, where we call don't destroy unload, and then we pass in this. What this essentially does is it prevents this game object from being destroyed whenever we change a scene. So that's why I want to check whether or not we have something referenced. If it is not the current object, we just destroy it, because that would create duplicates of the same script, which can lead to breaking of the game. And then if all of this has run and it's false, then we just assign it to instance and then just do not destroy it. And an important note here is that if you are adding this do not destroy onload, make sure that the game object this script sits on is on the root of the hierarchy, because if you have it under a parent and the parent get destroyed, then this will inevitably get destroyed also. So just make sure that this is not parented, or this is not parented, that is. And then the other method is the load scene and the unload loading scene. The load scene is very simple. We take an index of the scene that we want to load. We call scene manager.load scene. We load the actual loading screen first, and then followed by this we load the scene that we want. For instance, this is our game scene, but we load it additively, and then we call it on async, so it does not actually block the main thread. The reason we are calling this one additive is because we want it to be loaded alongside of the first one. If we ignore this, what would happen is this one will load, and then when these lines execute, it will actually unload this first scene. So then you'd have it just throw you in the game scene directly. And unload loading scene, it just unloads the loading screen, calling scene manager that unload scene async. And then the last script is the wait until load. Here we've got the references to our UI, so the win canvas and the progress. And then here we have a delegate for the onload progress. It takes a float percentage. On void awake, we subscribe to this event. This is the method that we are passing in. It's called onload progress m, takes in a percentage, multiplies it by 100, and then sets it on progress at value. And alternatively, also you could do is just initialize progress. So on void awake, just do progress that value equals to 0. This just ensures that whenever the screen is loaded, it just resets the UI nicely. And on void destroy, we unsubscribe, that's normal. And on void start, we start this enumerator. Here I'm waiting for the first frame to end, after which I'm waiting for scene load sim that has loaded. Alright, so basically remember we had a flag, so this is where we use it. And if you had multiple flags, then you'd have a system that would tell you that all the screen has loaded. This is what you'd replace it with. So let's say you had 2 scripts, then you could just grab a method that returns a boolean, and then it basically just loops through all of the different scripts, and then if one of them has not yet loaded, it just returns false. But given that we only have one script, so we just use it right here. And then the second one is optional, but it's always good to have it. Basically what it does is, because we were loading the other screen asynchronously, we want to ensure that the scene has actually been loaded completely before moving on. So this is what I'm doing. It's load scene dot instance dot game scene up dot is done. So this just ensures that we have actually loaded the scene because it is async. And then once this has been satisfied, we wait for the frame to end, and then we just show the win canvas. Again, you could change this logic with anything that you want. Perhaps have an auto timer of 3 seconds, and then after 3 seconds you'd call load game. That's also something you could do. So let's move on to the Unity editor. So now that we have finished with the scripts, let's just start by showing you how we can assign the different script. So in the base game, we have the scene load on the main menu. This holds the index to our loading screen, which is at index 2. And then that's basically it for the actual main menu. The only other thing is that I've linked this button with the load scene function of the scene load. If we go to the game scene, we only have the scene loader, that's all. And if we go to the game loading, we have the game itself. We've got the slider on top. This just shows us the progress of the loading. And then we've got a win panel. Alright, so this is very basic. It just has the text you want, and the button is linked to the actual wait until load, the load game function of this script. And in here we have a reference to the actual win canvas as well as the slider. Apart from that, we have the spawner, which spawns our balls and bumps, and as well as the basket that just collects everything. So yeah, that's about it. And let's take a look at how it all ties up. Again, if you got any questions, do leave them in the comment section down below. So yeah, hey, so here we are again, guys. Now that we have finished implementing the system, let's just try it out and see what happens. So again, here we are in the actual play mode, and just before that, let's look at the scene configuration. So we have the free scene, so main menu is 0, the game scene is 1, and then the loading screen is 2. So now if I hit play, I get to the actual mini game. As you can see, we have a progress bar on top that indicates the level progress, because it is definitely essential to let the player know that this is not the real game, rather it's loading the game, so you have a mini game. So that's why we have the level progress up top. And as you can see, once it has finished loading, it gives us the end game. So I just have it as you won with a button continue. Alternatively, you could have it say something like you won, and then automatically just redirects the player after 3 seconds. So that's up to you how you want to design it. But now if I click on continue, as you can see now, the game is fully loaded. Alright, and this has been loaded. We don't have to reinitialize it. So on this note, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did like this video, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you have not already, and yeah, so I'll see you guys next one. Bye.